and welcome back to the channel. I hope that everybody is doing well today. If you are new here, then hi, my name is Brittany and I'm a nurse practitioner. I'm also the creator of the Brittany Holzbeck NP review. So this is a complete AANP and ANCC review course, but it is also eligible for continuing education credits, and therefore nurses and nurse practitioners alike can actually take the course if you are in need of continuing education credits, which we know we all are because we need those to maintain our licensure. The entire course is actually available on my Patreon. Make sure you read the description for each tier because each tier offers something a little bit different. There's also a $5 tier on there, which is lots of clinical pearls and case studies for the new nurse practitioner. So definitely go ahead and check it out. I'll have everything linked in the description box below. I do also have another channel here on YouTube, which is like my personal channel. I do things a little bit more casually over there. Lifestyle vlogs, sit down and chit chats, that kind of stuff. If it's something you're interested in, I'll also have that linked in the description box below. And so for today's video, I'm going to be talking about a very high yield topic for the NP boards exam. So definitely something that if you're studying for your exam, I recommend that you watch and get a good handle on. But it's also something that is very applicable into practice as a nurse and a nurse practitioner. Without further delay, we're just going to get into the content for today. But make sure that while you're here and I have your attention, if you could go ahead and subscribe to the channel, it really helps me out and I really appreciate it. Otherwise, let's get into the topic. All right, so today I'm going to cover a pretty hot topic for the NP boards exam, and that's understanding the terms sensitivity versus specificity. So these terms, they're definitely going to pop up on your exam some way, somehow, and so it would definitely benefit you to build a familiarity with them. And aside from, of course, boards prep, they're just really useful terms to have an understanding of when either reading or interpreting research. And so no matter what, it is just very helpful to not only understand the definitions of these terms, but also be able to apply them. So first, I'm going to go over the definitions of both sensitivity and specificity, and then I'll talk about a few examples of how sensitivity and specificity are used in practice, and then I will share with you a little trick so you never forget the definitions and the difference between these two. Alright, so starting with sensitivity. So sensitivity is the number of patients with a positive test that have a certain disease divided by all patients who have this disease. So sensitivity refers to a test's ability to designate an individual with a disease as positive. So if a test has a high sensitivity, then this means that there are few false negatives, and so only a small number of cases of a disease are going to be missed with a test that has high sensitivity. Alright, so now in comparison, let's talk about specificity. So specificity is the number of patients that have a negative test that in fact do not have a disease, divided by the total number of patients that do not have said disease. So that means that the specificity of a test is the test's ability to correctly designate a patient that does not have a disease. So if a test has high specificity, then this means that there are few false positive results. Alright, so let's go over a couple of examples of how these terms can be used in practice and really put them into application. So first, a good example of a test with high sensitivity would be the PHQ-9. And this stands for Patient Health Questionnaire. It's got 9 questions, hence PHQ-9, and it's used for a screening tool for depression. So the PHQ-9 has an 88% sensitivity for the diagnosis of unipolar depression, meaning that 88% of the time the PHQ-9 accurately diagnoses a person with unipolar depression. And for specificity, a good example of a test with high specificity is the abdominal CT or computed tomography using contrast in the diagnosis of diverticulitis. So an abdominal CT with contrast has a 99% specificity for diagnosing diverticulitis, and that's huge. So this means that 99% of the time, patients can be accurately ruled out from having diverticulitis with the use of CT scan with contrast. And then finally, another good example to go over would be the whisper test. If you're not familiar with what the whisper test is, this is a really easy test that you can do in practice to evaluate a person for hearing loss. So the whisper test is done by standing at an arm's length behind the patient, and so this is to avoid them being able to lip read, and you have them cover one ear at a time, and while they have the ear covered, you whisper a short sequence of letters and numbers, and then you ask them to repeat what you said, and you do this for both ears. So the whisper voice test has a sensitivity of 90 to 100% and a specificity of 70 to 87% when you're evaluating hearing impairments in adults. So what does this mean, knowing what we know now regarding sensitivity and specificity? So this means that a positive whispered test accurately diagnoses a hearing impairment in an adult 90 to 100% of the time, and a negative whisper test accurately rules out a hearing impairment in an adult 70 to 87% of the time. Okay, and so now that little trick that I told you, promised about in the beginning, I came up with this when I was studying for my boards, and I still remember it to this day. It has stuck with me. And so it not only helps you remember the terms' definitions, but it also helps you to remember the difference between the two because they can be easily mixed up, I feel like. So sensitivity, this has two T's in it, compared to specificity, which has an F and then a T in it. So for sensitivity, I want you to remember the phrase truly true. And this is because sensitivity of a test describes the accuracy in which it can say a diagnosis is truly true, or that the patient truly does have the diagnosis. And then compared to specificity, I want you to remember the phrase truly false. And this is because specificity of a test describes the accuracy in which it can say a diagnosis is truly false, or that the patient truly does not have a diagnosis. So sensitivity has two T's for truly true, the diagnosis is truly true, and specificity has a T and an F for truly false, meaning the diagnosis is truly false. Keep repeating that in your mind over and over. I swear you will never forget the difference between the two. Alright, and so that is going to complete today's video. Hopefully you learned a little something and you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you give it a like and subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it, you guys. It helps me out a ton. Also, don't forget I will have my review course and everything else that I talked about at the beginning of this video linked in the description box below. Otherwise, if you have any questions, leave it in the comments. And until next time, I wish you guys nothing but the best. Don't forget to learn something new every day, and I will talk to you soon.